This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
Five hop principles lifting us higher, learning without blame, fueling our fire. Together we grow, together we thrive, keeping operational excellence alive.
Welcome to Season 7 and the 140th episode of the podcast show, Hop into Action. I am your host, Brent Sutton. Have you ever noticed how the same event can sound completely different depending on the words we use? Here's a simple one. A job gets done. It's messy. It's not quite by the book. Nobody got hurt, but it could have gone badly. And someone says, they took a shortcut. Now, in the speaker's head, that might mean, I'm worried. I want people safe. I want standards. But in the listener's head, especially if you're the person who did the work, it can land like, so you think I'm lazy? So you think I don't care? So you've already decided I'm the problem? Here is my reflection. The same words can have totally different experiences between the sender and the receiver. That gap between what we mean and what people hear is what today's episode is about. Whether we like it or not, words don't just describe work. Words shape what we think work is, and words shape who we think the problem belongs to. So today, we're exploring words as imagined versus words as received, and how changing a few labels can change the quality of learning we get from events or learning from everyday work. Let's set the frame. Every workplace has two realities running at the same time. Work is imagined, how the job is supposed to happen, process, procedure, plans, tidy lines on a page, and work is done, how the job actually happens with real conditions, real constraints, and real trade-offs. Now add language on top. When we talk about an event, we also have two realities. Words as imagined, what the speaker intended, and words as received, what the listener experienced. And the most important part is this. Language is not neutral. Words come with assumptions. Words can point the finger, sometimes without us noticing. Words decide where we look next. If our words imply this is a worker problem, then our actions tend to focus on the worker with outcomes of retrain them, warn them, discipline them, remind them harder, make a new rule, or add another signature line. But if our words imply this is a system problem, then our actions shift. We look at conditions, the tools, equipment design, time pressure, workload, planning, handovers, coordination, and everyday goal conflicts. Same event, different words, different outcomes. So the question isn't, should we use words carefully? The question is, are our words helping us learn or helping us blame? Here are some loaded words that quietly blame workers. And I'm not saying these words come from bad people. Often they come from people who care. And often people aren't even consciously aware of how the words may be received. Yet they can still land badly, and they can still shut learning down. Here are my top 5 loaded words, often used in organizations. Let us start with the word shortcut. Shortcut sounds like a moral judgment, like someone took the easy option because they couldn't be bothered. But here's a better question. Was it a shortcut or was it an efficiency trade-off? Because in real work, people are constantly trading off time, effort, risk, quality, production pressure, tiredness, availability of tools, weather, customers waiting, and supervisors calling. A shortcut is often just the path of least resistance that the system quietly created. If we want fewer shortcuts, we don't just say stop taking shortcuts. We ask, what made the safe way harder than it needed to be? What friction did we build into this job? And in second place, the word workaround. Workaround sounds like they bypassed the rules. But in many workplaces, a workaround is actually an adaptation, a problem-solving move, a way to keep the job moving when the process doesn't fit reality. Sometimes workarounds are risky, yes, but calling it workaround too early can block the next question. What was difficult, different, or surprising in that situation? Because when people adapt, they're usually trying to succeed in the system they've got. In third place is complacency. This one is everywhere. Complacency is basically a character diagnosis. It implies the person stopped caring. But most people I've met at work care a lot. They care about doing a good job. They care about not letting the team down. They care about getting home safe. So what else could complacency be pointing at? Sometimes it's familiarity, a signal of normalization, of a dodgy condition. Drift, where the line slowly moves because nothing bad happened last time. Calling it complacency can feel like a cheap finish. It ends the conversation. But calling it a signal or drift over time, that opens a conversation. What was becoming normal here? What were people getting used to? What conditions were quietly tolerated? In fourth place, we have the classic word distraction. Distraction often means they weren't paying attention, but what if it's actually cognitive load, interruptions, task switching, competing demands, confusing information, unclear priorities? If someone's distracted, I want to know, what else was pulling on their attention? And what did the system or design of work ask them to juggle? In fifth place, the big one, non-compliance and violation. Non-compliance usually implies they chose to break the rule. But a lot of the time, what's really happening is the procedure doesn't fit the job. The step order doesn't match the work site. The tools required aren't available. The timing is unrealistic. The process conflicts with the goal. So instead of non-compliance, try the word procedure work mismatch. Because that phrase forces us to ask, where didn't the process match reality? And what part of the job did we fail to design for? Let's do a mini case. Two versions of the same story, blame story versus learning story. Imagine a maintenance tech needs to isolate equipment. The isolation procedure is solid on paper, but on the day, access is tight, the tag points are awkward, the lighting is poor, the permit takes forever, production is calling every 10 minutes, and the job's already behind schedule. The tech uses an alternate sequence, and the work gets done, and the equipment is back in production. Then later on, someone says they took a shortcut. Now listen to the two stories you can tell. The first story, the worker problem story. They took a shortcut. They got complacent. They were distracted. They didn't follow the procedure. And what happens next? We focus on the person. We rebrief them, retrain them, remind them, maybe discipline them, maybe write a new rule, maybe send a stern email to everyone, or even hold a stand-down meeting. Yet the system stays mostly the same. The second story, the system story. They adapted to constraints. There was a procedure work mismatch. The worksite design created access friction. The system created time pressure and interruptions. Another person doing the same job would have faced the same trade-offs. Now what happens next? We focus on conditions. We redesign the isolation points, improve access and lighting, remove permit bottlenecks, plan the job differently, reduce interruptions during critical steps, and check whether the procedure reflects the reality of the task. Same event, but the second story gives us more leverage. It gives us more improvement. And here's the kicker. When people feel blamed, they stop telling you the full story. When people feel safe, they give you the detail that you need to actually learn.
We are taking a break from the podcast for this message. Forget heavy theory. The Hop Beginner's Guide series is written by practitioners. They are short, practical books you can actually use. Each guide is a value-packed read filled with stories, tools, and insights from global hop leaders like Todd Conklin, Brent Sutton, Jeffrey Lyth, Brent Robinson, and others. Designed for busy people, they give you the essentials fast and the confidence to put hop into practice right away. Small books, big lessons. Grab the Hop Beginner's Guide series on Amazon and start your journey to doing safety differently today. And now, back to the podcast.
So right now, you may be reflecting on how you have used these words in the past or how these words have been used against you. And this may bring up feelings such as guilt or blame. This is completely normal and not the purpose of this podcast. So to help you in a positive way, let us explore a simple tool, the language ladder. All right, here's something practical you can use in the next meeting you're in. I call it the language ladder. It's 4 steps. Step 1, spot the label. Step 2, ask what the label is pointing at. Step 3, rephrase as a condition. And step 4, ask a better question. Let's explore this a little more. Step 1, spot the label. Listen for the loaded word of shortcut, workaround, complacent, distracted, careless, and non-compliant. Just notice it. Don't create any drama, but consciously recognize how that word is steering the conversation. Step 2, ask what the label is pointing at. Instead of accepting the label, ask, what does that word actually mean here? For example, when we say shortcut, what step changed or what was different in the real work? Step 3, rephrase as a condition. Turn a judgment word into a description of constraints. So, shortcut becomes efficiency trade-off under time pressure. Workaround becomes adaptation to a process that didn't fit. Complacency becomes weak signal in the work or drift. Distraction becomes competing demands or interruptions. And non-compliance becomes procedure work mismatch. Step 4, ask a better question. And this is the magic part. Ask the question that creates learning. Try these. What made that choice make sense at the time? What were you up against? What was the goal conflict? What would have made the safe way the easy way today? What in the system is quietly teaching people to do it this way? That's the language ladder. And if you do nothing else, please simply do this. Swap one judgment word for one curiosity question. Let us now pivot and talk about words that injure versus words that heal and restore. Let's talk about how words land emotionally, because this is where culture gets shaped. There are phrases that shut people down fast. Why didn't you? You should have. Who's responsible? That's unacceptable. And we've told you before, even if your intention is safety, those words can land like a threat. Then there are phrases that restore learning. Help me understand what you were seeing. Talk me through how the job unfolded. What got in the way of the normal process? What was making the right way hard today? If you could change one thing about the system, what would it be? Those questions say, I'm not here to judge you, I'm here to learn. And look, this doesn't mean anything goes. It doesn't mean standards don't matter. It means we learn how to build standards that actually work under real conditions, because if the only time a procedure works is on a calm day with perfect staffing and no interruptions, then it's not a procedure. It's a wish, or as I commonly say, a hope-based control. So let's bring it home. The words we choose do two things at the same time. One, they describe the event, and two, they define the type of problem we believe we're dealing with, and that decides what we do next. So here's a simple challenge for the next week. Pick one word to retire. Just one. Maybe it's shortcut, maybe it's complacency, maybe it's non-compliant, and replace it with a more useful phrase: adaptation to constraints, procedure work mismatch, efficiency trade-off, competing demands, or drift over time. Then add one question to your conversations. What made that the sensible option in the moment? If you do that consistently, you'll notice something. People tell you more. They give you detail. They show you the real work. And that's where improvement lives. Because workers aren't the problem to control. They're the source of information we need to make the system better. So in closing, next time you're about to use a label, pause and ask, is this word helping me learn or helping me blame? If you found this podcast useful today, then this discussion is part of the new Volume 7, Hoppy Beginner's Guide to Doing Safety Differently, titled Ask Better Questions or Seek Better Stories, which is due for release mid-year. Thank you for your time today, and I look forward to sharing more stories with you to grow the community of HOP, learning teams, and the 4Ds.